Here now is the second part of the Charles Bravo mystery murder. See what I did there? In which we find out the terrible thing that happened to Charles.
Is it a mystery murder?
Yes, it is.
Isn't it typically called a murder mystery?
Of course it is. This is a mystery murder. Hence, me calling it that.
I thought you were being silly, not clever.
Maybe both. Okay, here we are now for part 2 of, as I said in the tease, and Carrie didn't quite follow, the Charles Bravo mystery murder. The reason I say that is because that's what's mysterious here. What happened to him? Was he murdered? Was it an accident? Was it something else? The more we learn about his actions during his lingering last days, it's that becomes the key question. It's a very strange. That's the strangeness in this case.
Oh, I see.
So it was very intentional. Carrie still a little upset
Is his real
about
name
that.
Charles Bravo?
His real name was Charles
Because
Bravo.
Aren't those the, what do they call it in
like
the military or whatever?
Are they? No,
Alpha-
C's not Charles. Is
Alpha,
it?
Bravo, Charles,
Is it?
Delta.
No, I don't think C's.
What is it then?
All I know is WTF.
Maybe it's I think it's
Wilco.
Charlie.
Charlie, that's it.
Yeah.
So it's not Charles. Charles seems too stuffy for the Army, I guess. So quick recap, as I want to do, because I love our listeners.
Hold on a second.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
This is the Weird World Podcast, and I'm Carrie.
That's a great point. I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm Dean.
Hi, Dean.
Hi, Carrie. So recap of what we heard in part 1 of the Charles Bravo mystery murder is we met one Florence Campbell. She would later become, of course, Florence Bravo. Carrie hates the way I say Campbell because I pronounce the P unnecessarily. No one else does. She married a guy named Alexander Ricardo. It went bad. They separated. During the separation, she met a guy named Dr. James Gully, who was way older than her. He was a hydrotherapist in 19th century hydrotherapy. That makes him an absolute quack.
Yeah.
And they fell in love. Luckily for Florence, Ricardo died, leaving her a big old fortune. So she moved to London because she liked to, live well and have fun, go to parties, have a social life and things like that. But because of her relationship with Dr. Gully, which ended, by the way, in abortion, and it was found out by some of those people in those upper crust circles, she became a social pariah.
And the reason why she couldn't marry him was because he was already married.
Yes, he was married. That's also a big reason for the scandal that it caused. But still, she's living a pretty good life, but she needs to have those social interactions. She wants to gain her good name back. So what she does is she marries someone with a good name, and she does that through her lady's companion, Mrs. Jane Cox. In fact, Mrs. Jane Cox kind of sees that Florence really needs this repair to her reputation. So she goes out to find her a really respectable husband. She does. His name is Charles Bravo. Now, even though there were lots of warning flags and red flags that we learned about in part 1, she still went through and she married him. He was for sure marrying her for her money, but she thought she could make a go of it. And who cares? It would restore her reputation, which it did. And she also broke from her family, and that was restored. And she started having parties, lovely Christmas parties, which, as you recall, the mayor of Streatham. I learned in the interim. I've learned how to pronounce that, by the way. It's just simple. It takes 4 seconds on YouTube. So but still, it didn't go well. There started marital strife, started up almost immediately, and she had not one but 2 miscarriages, and she had some pretty significant gynecological problems. So she was very, very worried about ever getting pregnant ever again, and Charles was not taking no for an answer on that regard. One day on his way to work, Charles fell ill, and we wondered, just a coincidence? No, a short time later, as we're going to talk about now, he would fall ill again and he would not recover. So we pick it up on the 18th of April in 1876. Charles went out for a nice horse ride. Of course, he went on a horse ride on one of the horses that he tried to force Florence to sell because he thought they cost too much. That's just the way he rolled. Again, he was pretty clearly a dick.
Yeah.
Typical Charles. His horse, though, on this ride was spooked and it bolted. I don't think he was thrown. I don't know if he was thrown or not, but it bolted. And It freaked him out. He got home. He had to be helped upstairs for a hot bath and get right to bed.
Wow.
Because remember, at this point, I swear to God, the 19th century upper class British people were the biggest pussies in human history. I mean, they'd always take to their sickbed for weeks or months at a time. How they conquered most of the globe during this period is absolutely beyond me.
That happened to me when I was 7. And nobody helped me to a warm bath.
You were thrown from a horse?
No, it bolted with
really?
me on it. And I didn't know how to even ride a horse.
Why were you on a horse?
Somebody had to come get me. We were at a ranch.
You had a ranch. So a super responsible parent put you on a horse.
Oh, not a parent, bolted. Like workers.
Oh, really?
This was
Where were your
organized.
Parents?
Oh, they were around somewhere.
Okay.
I don't know.
So again, super responsible parents said, yeah, take our 7-year-old and who's never been on a horse in her life, put on a horse. You put them on horses that are like 20 years old or months from dying.
This was supposedly the most gentle horse they had.
Maybe horses hate you.
I know.
I was thrown.
I know. I was with you.
Over a horse. I was thrown head over heels. But I was thrown Christopher Reeve style over the head of the horse. I did not get paralyzed, though, luckily for me. Charles had recovered enough, though, that he came downstairs for dinner with Florence and Mrs. Cox. That's pretty much the household. Charles, Florence, her latest companion, Mrs. Cox, and a bunch of servants.
Yeah.
So you're probably wondering what they had for dinner. Well, I can tell you. They had bloater on toast.
Ooh, what's that?
It's like a fish paste. I had to look it up, obviously, because this is England, and their food is horrific. Or at least at this time, especially. Now they, thank God, have curry, so they can actually eat something that has flavor. And this, I'm sure, had flavor. I'm also sure the flavor was horrific. So they also had some lamb, though. So that's not bad, but I'm sure it was boiled. Something like that. And they had some spinach and some eggs. Dinners have changed over the years, haven't they? It's weird. You know, omelets were, at least in France anyway, I think in England too, omelets among, again, these sort of upper class was a dinner thing. They almost eat like an appetizer very often. They'd make a little omelet and have it as an appetizer, usually for dinner, not a breakfast thing. The more you know.
Yeah.
Charles enjoyed 3 glasses of Burgundy during this period, but Mrs. Cox and Florence, they had champagne and Marsala wine and plenty of it. They were all drinking. It's another thing that you look back in time and people drink. We think since COVID hit, we've been drinking because we have drank a lot more than we did before. We could not hold a candle to 19th century upper crust people or any couple middle class and above in the 1960s in the United States, right? Yeah. They'd always come home. Where's my scotch? Every night they're having hard liquor. That seems weird to me.
Well, I'm
what?
My parents were in the 60s, and I don't think they were.
Oh, I will bet you money they did. I'll bet you they drank.
Oh, they drank.
Okay.
But my dad didn't come home from work and have a scotch.
No, he stayed at a bar and had beer all night long.
Yeah. He was having scotch at the bar, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
An occasional Olympia.
Yeah.
He was from Washington, so I'm assuming. So, people drink a lot more. And so they're drinking a lot here at this dinner. They're having plenty. But you'll see in a minute, it was becoming potentially a bit of a problem. During this sumptuous English feast, Charles had received a letter from his stepfather. That's Joseph Bravo. The elder Bravo had mistakenly received a stockbroker's report that was meant for Charles, meant for a stepson, and it detailed some recent losses on the stock market. So he gets his letter he wasn't supposed to, and he, instead of like, oh, sorry about that, here it is, he opened it, read it, and then he wrote a letter to Charles saying, hey, I know you're losing money in the stock market. What are you doing? Knock it off, dick. Remember, he had married money now. But one of the reasons he married Florence was to get out of the shadow of his dad, who gave him a paltry allowance. His job as a lawyer was not earning him very much income.
Yeah.
But still, I think his father still had a lot of control. His stepfather had a lot of control over him. And, he wrote him a nasty letter. He wrote Charles a nasty letter. So Charles, I guess during dinner, he's reading this letter and his face just turns this furious red. He's getting visibly angry. He's barely constraining his anger throughout dinner, so it wasn't very pleasant. But of course, the ladies were drinking enough that they didn't care.
Yeah.
More than ever, though, perhaps Charles really needed his own money. I think that to me, this is significant because it probably brought home to him. Or if he knew already that he really needed his own money. Remember, he didn't have control over Florence's money.
Mm-hmm.
He had got her to sign over the house, the priory to him. That's great. But as long as they lived it, didn't sell it, he didn't have a lot of money. She still controlled the purse strings entirely, and he wasn't making much of his own money. I don't know this for a fact, but he may have even be getting the allowance from his dad.
Yeah.
For some spending cash.
You sound sympathetic.
No,
okay.
No, he was a douche. So, but anyway, it's a stew of what's going on in this guy's mind at the time.
Well, and you mentioned last time the law in England had recently changed, where before, upon their marriage, he would have had control over everything. Her money became his money.
He would have got it all immediately.
And that changed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just not long. I want to say 1870.
Shortly before they got married.
So very shortly before, just a few years. So it was, he was never, he still was itching for her money and itching for his own money and own wealth. He wanted it, which is, given the culture of the time, is pretty understandable, but especially someone like him who was kind of greedy,
and not able to earn it on his own.
Absolutely not. Yeah. Despite the very good connections of his family.
Yeah, he had every
too.
advantage in life. He had an education. He had a good job.
Yeah.
He should have been doing better than he was.
I agree. So the threesome finally ended dinner, and they all went upstairs to their respective rooms. This was not too long after, a few weeks after Florence's second miscarriage. She was still having Charles sleep in the guest room. And she was, kind of almost like, oh, it's my sick bed. I'll be in the bedroom by myself. And she was. And she would often have Mrs. Cox spend a lot of time in there. Honestly, I think it was just to keep Charles off of her.
Yeah.
Because Charles, again, was insisting that they start having sex again, even though I think 3 weeks or so since her last miscarriage.
Yeah.
So once upstairs, Florence asked the maid, Mary Ann Keebler, to bring her another glass of Marsala. Charles turns on her immediately, and he accuses her of having already drunk like a whole bottle all by yourself. And essentially, by this time, he thought that she was developing a drinking problem, and she may have been. So, and when they're speaking, because the maid is still there, they spoke in French, so the maid couldn't understand them, which is so upper class kind of a thing. They immediately just switch over to French. I'm surprised they didn't do Latin. But he said, Joe, you have sent downstairs for a glass of wine. You have drunk nearly a bottle today. So he wasn't happy with that. Florence just ignored him. Goes, that's great. Marianne, go get me my wine. And she walked into her room. Charles, again, was sleeping in the guest room. He turned on his heels and went into the guest room right then. When Marianne, the maid, came back up with the wine, she found that Florence was already asleep. Now, was she passed out? Was she faking being asleep? We'll have reason to think both of those here in just a minute. Well, the passed out is because she had drunk a bottle of Marsala. But Jane Cox, who Florence had begged her to, can you spend the night in my room since I'm still not feeling well from recovering from the miscarriage? She was just knitting quietly in a chair. So Marianne started to kind of tidy up in Florence's dressing room. Mrs. Cox asked Marianne, the maid, if she would take Florence's 2 dogs downstairs and put them away for tonight. Again, later on, we'll see why this might be significant. So the maid says, sure, I'll do it. So she goes and starts trying to gather dogs. They're somewhere upstairs, so she's calling the dogs. And again, Marianne is just knitting. She's next to Florence, who is sleeping. Charles is alone in the guest room. It couldn't have been more than a couple minutes when Charles suddenly burst out from the room and he cried out, Florence, Florence, hot water, hot water. And then he rushed back into his room. I'll tell you in a second why that's what that meant, what he almost certainly was meaning from that.
Okay.
So he's just their room, Florence's room, where she's apparently asleep, but Mrs. Cox is knitting or crocheting, is just down the hall from his door, from Charles's bedroom door, and he rushed out of the door toward that room, toward his wife's, the main bedroom. Neither one of them did a thing. Neither one of them opened the door and went and checked and see what was going on. Marianne, she's still out. She's trying to gather the dogs. She heard it though. And so she's kind of looks wondering, okay, I guess Florence is going to come out. Florence didn't come out. So seeing no sign of Florence coming out to see what Charles needed, Marianne herself rushed into Charles' room to see if she can help. And she found him just like hot and red-faced and sweaty and really distressed. And he again started screaming for hot water. And then he ran over to the window on the opposite side of his room and he just vomited all over the top of, I guess they had a roof right below it, maybe a porch or something like that.
Yeah.
So he just vomited all over the roof below his the guest room window. Okay. So he's that's 2 vomits in a minute. Unsure what to do, Marianne rushed into Florence's room and again found Florence is still asleep, despite the ruckus going on, or at least appearing to be asleep. And she found Mrs. Cox just obliviously knitting and or crocheting. I don't know what she was doing. Some form of needlework.
Okay.
You could not have heard that. There's no way. He screams, Florence, Florence. So the maid told Mrs. Cox that Charles was sick. He was throwing up. He was crying out for hot water. Mrs. Cox then sprang into action. She got up right away. She went to her servant and she said, go get me coffee and mustard. And Marianne rushed downstairs to fetch those things. The concoction, that was undoubtedly, it was used as an emetic. It was used to induce vomiting.
Okay.
So essentially, almost like, did he have stomach poison? Is he getting sick from something he ate? Hey, get him some coffee and some mustard. So that will make him better, we hope. Yeah. Mrs. Cox went into Charles's room and he's throwing up again.
Yeah.
This time, at least, he's throwing up into a basin, not out the window. So he finishes throwing up in the basin. She takes the basin, she hands it to her servant, and she says, go wash that out. She then orders another servant to go fetch Dr. Harrison. Dr. Harrison is Florence's personal physician. Later, when people start looking into this case, this would be viewed as a little bit odd, a little bit even suspicious, because Charles' condition must have seemed very dire. He's thrown up now 3 times in a hot minute. He couldn't stop vomiting, which makes you wonder how a coffee and a mustard, which could be used as an emetic, would help. He was already vomiting. So, and Dr. Harrison was in Streatham, which is the town they're in Balham, as you recall. Again, these are areas now of London, effectively, but they're kind of like towns, being in the process of being swallowed up by metropolitan London. Yeah. And I hope I have the history right. And so it was a bit of a ways away. He was not anywhere near the nearest doctor. There were doctors in the immediate neighborhood, and she did know about them. So we'll talk about that later as well.
Okay, can I say something? Yes,
absolutely.
Here?
Please.
Somebody vomiting profusely or violently would not make me panic like, this person's going to die. Let's get a doctor here very quickly.
Oh, a doctor, 3 times in a minute and he can't stop vomiting. I would want to go get a doctor, especially at this time. They got doctors for anything. Right?
I know, but I mean...
he got a doctor because his horse went too fast.
I know, but you're acting like they're underreacting and... Doesn't seem like it to me.
I wouldn't say underreacting at this point by calling a doctor. I would say folks have accused it very suspicious that when he comes out screaming for hot water, they don't move a muscle. And he literally said, Florence, Florence, hot water, hot water.
Yeah, but what the fuck does hot water mean?
Hot water was also used as an emetic.
Okay.
So they think he was calling out for hot water.
Because he wanted to
which
vomit?
Doesn't make a lot of sense, no. But he thinks he's sick.
Yeah.
He wants to do, he doesn't know he's going to vomit immediately again and then immediately again after that.
Here's what I would say.
Yes.
Florence is passed out. And Mrs. Cox doesn't give a shit if Charles needs hot water.
She should have.
Why?
Why not?
She doesn't like him. She's not his servant.
No, but she could go
out and her friend and boss.
I think you're going the opposite way. You really are. The natural human reaction to go see what he needed. He sounded panicked. The natural human reaction would be for sure, Carrie, come on. I'm 1,000,000,000% sure you would go out and see what someone needed, even if you didn't like that person. I'm positive you would.
Yeah, because I'm a nice person.
Yes, well, Mrs. Cox seemed like a nice person too. Don't be bagging on Mrs. Cox. I can think
of a person or two who I might not leap out of my crocheting.
You wouldn't continue
my comfy crocheting chair because they were crawling for hot water.
Okay, it wasn't like hot water, honey, hot water. No, it was screaming, and she didn't even move. She's literally still crocheting or knitting when the maid went up there and said, "You guys going to see about that?"
Also, where did this account come from?
Remember, the whole service staff is there. No one questions this. This happened.
Okay.
This is direct. So Marianne went to wake up Florence. So again, Mrs. Cox is saying, go get mustard, go get coffee. Marianne goes to, and go get a doctor who's pretty far away. Marianne goes to wake up Florence, and apparently she's still deeply asleep. And although, and woke her up, some sources say that she had just woken up on her own accord. I don't know which is true. I mean, she had a lot to drink.
Yeah.
She had a lot of Marsala, so that's possible. Some people, of course, think that she was faking it, so we don't know.
And actually, Mrs. Cox had a lot to drink, too.
She did, but we know she was wide awake.
Well, she was awake, but...
Just out of it.
Well...
Slurred hearing.
No, just like, makes you a little bit more sluggish to react and all that kind of stuff.
You are looking to excuse.
Could be she could be drunk and like...
You are acting like a defense lawyer at this point. Florence went to her husband's room. So she got her up, got her out of bed. She goes to Charles's room, and she saw how bad he was. And she actually apparently became kind of hysterical. Like she started freaking out a little bit because he's throwing up constantly. He looks terrible. And again, remember, the maid said he looked awful.
Yeah, I think it's because he's making a huge mess.
That, and also, remember, he's all red and sweaty and clearly distressed and making a horrific mess.
Yes.
So far, though, it sounds like he had vomited. Where was the first vomit? That might have been all over the floor.
Yeah.
I don't know. The second one was out the window. The third one, he finally was able to get it in a receptacle of some sort. So Florence shouted for a servant to immediately fetch the nearest doctor, one, I think, just down the street in the same neighborhood. And because she said, no, it's going to take too long for Dr. Harrison to get here. Go get a doctor as quickly as you can. So that servant runs out to get a doctor in the neighborhood. Bravo had fallen unconscious by this point, and when 2 doctors arrived, they found him in bad shape. They both got there at the same time, by the way, because there was a head start for Dr. Harrison.
Right.
So Dr. Harrison and this local doctor came at the same time. They found Charles to be unconscious, to not be in good shape. They both quickly came to the same conclusion. They said he had swallowed some pretty powerful poison. He was unconscious, so he couldn't tell them what had happened, what he had taken. And no one in the house said, no, we have no idea. We had dinner just a little while ago. He had the same thing we did. We have no clue. Because obviously it helps to know what bad things he might have taken. Mm-hmm. So the 2 doctors are tending to their patient. And Florence suggested, hey, let's call a third doctor in. Because Charles's cousin was a very respected doctor named Royce Bell. She said, let's call Royce. I know Royce. He'll want to know. He can help. So he arrived, I guess, early in the morning. Remember, this is happening like 10:30 when it first happened. So Bell arrived sometime early in the wee hours of the morning of now the April 19th. And then he had taken the liberty of bringing a 4th doctor in tow with him. The guy was named Dr. George Johnson. So they called Bell. He says, yeah, I'll come, but I'm going to bring Dr. Johnson with me. So he did. By this time, Charles had regained consciousness by the time his cousin came. And he seems to have gotten the vomiting under control, but he still appeared to be horrifically ill, really, really in bad shape. The doctors desperately needed to know what he thought had made him so sick and to better treat him and hopefully even save him his life at this point. Charles, though, said he had no idea what was causing this. And this really is the crux of this mystery. It's very odd. The only thing he said he had done was he had rubbed some laudanum on a tooth due to a toothache. Now, laudanum is a heroin, essentially, a poppy derivative that was used as a painkiller. You could rub it on your tooth. You also could drink a little small amounts, and it made you feel good and hopefully fall asleep and took the pain away.
Right.
It was abused and used frequently in 19th century England, especially among the sort of upper middle class on up.
Yeah.
So he thought, maybe I swallowed a little too much laudanum. And it's safe. Again, it's safe to ingest. He said he had rubbed some on his tooth and maybe he swallowed some. It's like, okay, so.
But that would just make you feel good.
People swallowed some laudanum all the time. Yeah. That didn't make any sense. And if you only swallow the amount you're rubbing on your tooth, so what?
Maybe he's allergic to it.
He's not. He had taken it before.
Oh, okay.
It was under prescription. So that didn't track. It also didn't track with what was his illness at all. So the doctors immediately knew it could not be laudanum.
Right.
So the doctors were baffled. Does it make sense? Our patient says he didn't take anything except maybe a little bit of laudanum. The symptoms clearly have nothing to do with laudanum. He's not telling us anything else. They were baffled almost immediately about this. Mrs. Cox had been helping to attend Charles all through that early morning hours. She kind of like signaled to one of the doctors, or maybe a couple of them, we're not sure if it was one or two of them. And she said, hey, I think I can help you better understand the situation. Maybe come out here in the hall. I'll tell you something. So they did. And she told the doctors that while Florence was not near the bed, he had called her, Mrs. Cox, over, and he had told her something in secret. Mrs. Cox said Charles had said, quote, I've taken some of that poison. Don't tell Florence. So then that's what Mrs. Cox said Charles had told her. Now she is telling the doctors that. The doctors naturally said, well, what poison?
Yeah.
And she said, oh, I don't know. I don't know what poison he's referring to. He just said that. So he basically admitted taking poison. In other words, whether it was suicide or accidental, he's admitting to her, and she's now telling the doctors he committed suicide. He took the poison, and he's not telling you. He's doing the laudanum story because he doesn't want to tell you, and he doesn't want Florence to know. So
why would he tell her then?
It's a great question. It's a very, very, very fair question.
Mrs. Cox.
So Mrs. Cox is clearly implying that he had poisoned himself. And maybe it's by accident, maybe it's suicide, but that's for sure what she's trying to imply here.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, would have been the best possible outcome for the Bravo household, essentially being Florence and Mrs. Cox.
Yeah.
There's no suicide scandal if it was just kind of an accident and he just, and for sure no murder. That's even worse. But better yet, no Charles.
Right.
So this is a win-win-win if she can kind of sell this story. And that's how things remained we're going to find for a total of about 3 days. This is weird. It was this kind of sickly stalemate. Charles is deathly ill. He slips in and out of consciousness. He's withering. He's dying. He would not tell his doctors and give them any hint of what he thought happened to him or what he should have known had happened to him other than this very uncredible laudanum story.
Yeah. I mean, if he's poisoned by someone, he doesn't know it.
He would never tell him anything. We'll find out in a minute what almost certainly was the medium for the poison, and he would have known immediately. He would have for sure known he was poisoned.
Okay.
If he had been poisoned by someone else, he would have known immediately that he was poisoned.
I mean, it had to be after dinner, right?
Yes. We'll trust me. I'll get there, and you'll agree that he for sure would. If he had been poisoned and it wasn't his own fault, he would have known he was poisoned immediately for sure.
Okay.
Bravo's doctors must have had their suspicions though, because they wouldn't stop asking him, "Help us out here.
Right.
We know the laudanum's bullshit. Tell us what's happening. You're in bad shape. Help us help you." But he refused to breathe an unkind word about anybody in the household, especially not Florence, his wife. Again, they weren't getting along well at all. He was very angry with her. Remember, they were arguing over money and things like that, her money and things like that.
And her drinking.
And her drinking, yeah. They weren't getting along at all. And her miscarrying and not having sex with him immediately post-miscarries. Yeah. His own family rushed to his bedside. And I don't know, there aren't any records of like a verbatim what they said, but that they were asking him, what happened? Who did this to you? It was Florence, wasn't it? It was Florence. And we'll find out they were very suspicious of Florence. In fact, later on, they're going to hire a private investigator to look into her. So they're also asking Charles, what happened to you? Tell us what happened to you. He would not.
Huh.
He told them the same story he told the doctors, which again, the doctors know there's no truth in that. Eventually, 6 doctors would attend to Charles Bravo during his sick period. Florence, even one of those 6 doctors that Florence called in was Dr. William Gall. He was the personal physician to Queen Victoria. And wait, is it Queen Victoria? Yes, Queen Victoria. This is 19th century. I was getting Elizabeth and Victoria a little bit mixed up. This is Queen Victoria time, the Victorian era. Yeah. So Gall was the personal physician to the Queen. Have you heard that name, by the way?
No.
You two listeners, have you guys heard that name? I'll wait for an answer. He is in modern times suspected of either being Jack the Ripper or being effectively like the aide de camp to Jack the Ripper, who when people say it was the prince, I think his name was Clarence or something. I can't remember his name, but a lot of people think a prince with syphilis, a royal prince with syphilis was Jack the Ripper, and Gall helped him.
You mean a son of Queen Victoria?
Correct.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. There's a common theory. It's utterly ludicrous. It's nonsensical. We'll do Jack the Ripper one of these days. But Gall has been brought up as like going with him and helping him or covering up or something like that for him and teaching him the medical precision Jack the Ripper supposedly had, or some people have actually posited Gall himself as Jack the Ripper. Huh. Interesting. He, by the way, Gall had been a physician to Florence's father some years ago, so she had some connection. So she calls this guy. He's like the most famous doctor in England, and she calls him in too to look after her husband. So she's acting the right way. So Gall comes in. It's Thursday, April 20th now. It's 2 days into Charles's agonizing ordeal. For what it's worth, Gall thought Bravo had committed suicide, or at least he seems to, because he said this: "Whatever Mr. Bravo took, he took it himself. Why he thought that
Yeah.
is not known. It may have just been a supposition, a guess, and may also have been loyalty to Florence's family, who he knew. He did not know Bravo's family.
Yeah.
The sixth and last doctor to come to the aid of Charles Bravo was a guy named Henry Smith. He was also a very prominent physician. He was the most direct yet with Charles. He flat out, bluntly told Charles, "You're going to die. You're almost certainly going to die. And it's probably not going to be that long from now. You really need to tell us the truth. Tell us what happened. If we have a ghost of a chance of saving your life, you need to tell us the truth. Enough of the laudanum story. At the very least, so you can ensure justice will be done. Even justice,
right.
Like, what if you die now and some innocent person gets accused of poisoning you? If you took a poison, in other words, if you committed suicide, you need to tell me now, and not because no one's going to believe the laudanum stuff. When we cut you open, they're not going to find laudanum. They're going to find something else. Tell us what that is, and tell us really what happened, so no one gets accused of murdering you if they didn't.
Isn't the treatment for poisoning pretty much the same for any kind of poison?
I don't think so.
Like,
I don't know, but I don't think so.
Activated charcoal or whatever. Whatever they do.
I'm not sure.
I mean, is there an antidote to arsenic and an antidote to cyanide?
I don't know. They probably would be different treatments, though, for different poisons, I imagine. Especially in 19th century England, they didn't know what we know now.
So they're doing nothing because they don't know exactly what the poison is?
They're trying to make him comfortable.
Wow.
I mean, he had stopped throwing up by this time, but he was in very, very bad shape. I'll get you to why he was in bad shape in a minute. It's awful.
Okay.
So again, Charles, even to Dr. Smith, he just repeats the same old laudanum story about the toothache. And I mean, Dr. Smith was going, I tried.
Yeah.
Now, you might think that Charles maybe he was thinking about the future, and that's why he's climbing up. Maybe he believed he was going to pull through. And if he did pull through, for some reason, it'd be good that no one knew the truth. So in other words, if someone had murdered him, maybe he's trying to keep that a secret because he'd have, I don't know, a trump card to play. Or if he had committed suicide and he never wanted anyone to know that.
Right.
And if he did pull through. So maybe he's trying to keep it secret logically, or there's some other reason, because he thought he might live.
Yeah.
And therefore it'd be good that no one knew that. But this is highly unlikely because there's pretty much no doubt that Charles knew for a fact he was going to die.
Okay.
Marianne Keebler, remember the maid?
Yeah.
She'd been tending assiduously to Charles throughout this. She was very good, and she was treating him well, doing everything she could for him. And so he kind of acknowledged this with some very kind words to her. He said, thank you for this. And he also said, they're kind of chit-chatting when he was in his conscious state. And he said that the family had planned a trip to Worthing, which is a seacoast town. And he said he probably wasn't going to make it to that trip to Worthing. He said he would be heading instead for the Streatham churchyard. And by that, he meant the cemetery.
Right.
Bravo also called his solicitors and made a will. He left everything to Florence.
Well,
so he was giving the house back to her.
Generous.
And whatever else he had in his name. Well, that's at least the house back to her. Remember, she had given him the house.
Again, her house to begin with.
He had some other things. He had a couple of nickels he could rub together. His clothes.
Maybe.
Again, the doctors begged Charles to tell him anything he was keeping back, and he would not. And at one point, he just snapped to a doctor and said, "If I knew what I was suffering from, why the devil should I send for you?" Which doesn't make any sense. If you knew your poison, you're still going to want to call a doctor.
Yeah.
But I think he's just sick of being badgered at this time. He was clearly never going to give up what he knew had happened to him. Dr. Johnson took a sample of Charles's vomit.
I lost track. Which one is Dr. Johnson?
One of the 6 doctors. Doesn't matter.
Not the Queen's doctor and not his
He was the one who came
not...
with the cousin.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
They're all very, very eminent doctors. Mm-hmm. He took some of the vomit. He took it and did a quick chemical analysis on his own back at the lab. I don't know, wherever he was. And he found nothing incriminating. Again, they didn't have great science back then, but they could tell some of the key poisons. They had already checked the Burgundy that he had drunk the night before.
Yeah.
Nothing in that. Another key possible source was, and probably the most obvious source, was a carafe of water that Charles habitually used and kept at his bedside. Mm-hmm. So every night he'd fill up this bottle of water and he'd usually gulp some down, drink some before he went to bed. It was just sort of a habit of his. And the remaining water was found to be free of poison. Of course, could very easily, and we'll hear later that Mrs. Scotch would say that it was dumped and rinsed out. So that's not, it's not that telling
Yeah.
that there was no poison found in the water, because as it'll turn out, and I'll go ahead and spoil it now, it's almost certain, in fact, pretty sure that whatever had killed him was in that water.
Oh,
He would have, every night, he had gulped down some water, and every important player in that house knew that.
Okay, yeah.
Toward the end of his withering, suffering, horrible ordeal, Charles's doctors had effectively, they gave up. You said, what were they doing? At this point, they knew he was dying. It's just a matter of when, not if.
Yeah.
And so they kind of gave up. They couldn't think of anything else to do. And Florence seemed genuinely to be just beside herself and really angst-ridden and sad. Secretly, Florence had also sought the help of a seventh doctor.
Jeez.
You can imagine who that is. That was Dr.
Her old
Gully,
yeah.
the old flame.
Yeah.
She quietly sent Mrs. Cox to ask Gully for his advice. Gully suggested a homeopathic treatment and mustard plasters, so he was of no use whatsoever. Remember, Gully had made his reputation. He was a hydrotherapist.
Yeah.
That was in 19th century. Hydrotherapy was pure quackery. It's not like, there is legitimate hydrotherapy these days as part of physical,
Right.
therapy and things like that. That's fine. And in 19th century, hydrotherapy was ludicrous. You took, long baths and things like that, and it had mineral water, and it was, cure you of gout and all kinds of nonsense that is absolutely not true. It was pseudoscience back then. So Dr. Gully was a pseudoscience. Homeopathy was then and is now pseudoscience, but it was so he couldn't help. So thanks. Charles was very kind to Florence during his entire illness.
Huh.
Quote, "What a bother I am to you, Florrie," he said affectionately. He told her to remarry and be happy if he died, or should have been when he died. He asked her to take care of his illegitimate daughter. Remember, she admitted the affair with Dr. Gully. He apparently, I've read later, he found out the next day. I'm sorry, he told her the next day, "Oh, by the way, you admitted your affair, and I forgave you for it. Well, I had an affair for 4 years. In fact, I have a daughter."
Yeah.
So he asked her to take care, at least financially, of his daughter. He even went to his controlling mother, his harpy of a mother, who hated Florence, and he said, "Please be kind to her when I'm gone."
Huh.
So he's doing kind of the right thing here at the end.
That's weird.
That end finally came on Friday morning, April 21st at about 5:30 a.m. A parade of family and friends had come to his bedside. There had been 6 doctors. There had been lots of servants. He had known he was dying pretty much the entire time. He was suffering horribly, and yet whatever secret Charles Bravo had to tell about the cause of his demise, he took that to the grave. So if Charles had ended his life in a forgiving mood, his family, particularly that mother of his, was not of the same persuasion.
Mm-hmm.
They felt for sure he was poisoned deliberately and with malice.
Right.
They were certain, that is to say, that he'd been murdered, and they hired a private detective. That you'll find out later, they would soon thereafter hire a private detective, and immediately they demanded an inquest and an investigation into how their son had died.
Mm-hmm.
The private detective was probably not a bad idea because the police botched it.
Yeah.
This is 19th century police. They're not very good. But it was 8 days before they even spoke to Mrs. Cox or Florence and asked them for their version of the events to be on the record, which is not good. Detectives of the time, they were very poorly equipped to really tackle any murder that actually required detection.
Right.
They could solve things if no. So the woman was killed. Her ex-boyfriend threatened her. They could handle that. Anything that took like cleverness, not good.
Yeah.
If they had a confidential informant, if they had someone tell who did it, they could handle it. Otherwise, they weren't good. They basically, at this point, they really just clean up messes and mostly solved like thievery and stuff like that, and mostly among the lower classes and working classes.
Yeah.
Virtually all police officers were from the working class. They weren't, even detectives, by the way, were generally speaking from middle to lower middle class. And cops were often from the lowest class. So they were very reticent to ask their, quote, betters anything at all, let alone about a murder, let alone kind of implying we suspect you.
Yeah.
So they were not going to get to the bottom of this, and they didn't. And the upper class would return the same attitude and not give them the time of day. And there was really nothing to force them to do so anyway. Most cops were just, I'm sorry to ask you just a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll leave. So on one end, Charles's powerful family is trying to work to investigate her, hiring a private detective and demanding an inquest. On the other end is Florence and her family. Remember, they're a prominent family as well.
Yeah.
Her father had even been a justice of the peace and a high sheriff. So he had law enforcement connections, significant ones. He laughed at a police investigation, thought it was a waste of time. He also bragged that, I'm not worried, I can arrange for a suicide verdict in 5 minutes if I want to.
Yeah.
So nothing's going to happen here, which is not a super smart attitude, public attitude to take, but he did. He kind of could. We'll find out in a second. He also hired a very prominent barrister named Sir Henry James at the time, so just in case you're on standby if my daughter gets into legal trouble.
Well, that was nice of him.
That was nice of him. They had, after the marriage, they had stopped shutting her out.
Right.
Henry James, was the best friend of William Gladstone. He was the former and would be the future Prime Minister of England. So this guy was pretty well connected.
Okay.
Florence's father also arranged for the eminent Dr. Gall to also be on standby and to testify on Florence's behalf if it came to that as well. So he was getting ready to, defend her with all his connections and all his might.
Yeah.
First, though, there had to be an autopsy for obvious reasons. So the postmortem showed that the doctors had been right. Charles Bravo had been poisoned, but it was no accidental overdose of laudanum, as they always knew and never believed. It was, any thoughts, any guesses on what the poison was that killed him? You
arsenic.
Probably don't. No, you think arsenic and cyanide, but this is not that. It was something called antimony.
Oh.
It's also called tartar emetic, and it was a lot of it, a gargantuan dose of it. So it's usually taken in a tiny amount. I imagine less than a grain of it, and a tiny amount as used for as tartar emetic is used to induce vomiting. Right?
Yeah.
4 grains can kill an adult human.
Ooh.
They found 30 grains in what was left of the shredded innards of Charles Bravo. This was no accident. This was almost certainly lethal intent. That's a massive amount.
Okay, so wait, how many grains would kill a person?
4. They found 30, so 7.5 times.
Why did it take days to kill him?
It's a great question. Good constitution. So, but they found just a massive dose. I don't know if it would kill you. I don't know if even 4 grains would kill you. I didn't say it'd kill you instantly.
No,
that'd probably take days as well, I imagine. So again, antimony is also called tartar emetic. It was used pretty commonly to induce vomiting, which of course Charles was doing copiously.
Yeah.
But here's the key. Antimony is very caustic at these high doses. The amount of antimony that he took had burned the tissue along Charles's mouth, his throat, and his stomach, all the way down to his alimentary canal, which we also know as the poop chute.
Yeah.
It had settled in his intestines finally after doing this horrific damage on the way down. And there it had left his intestines swollen and blistered, just brutally burned. His large intestine had been so ravaged and just almost completely corroded. It was basically gone. It was just destroyed. It was shreds.
How was he able to talk?
How he lived 3 days is remarkable.
Yeah.
Think about that. So his insane pain, it's like an acid going down your body, burning everything on the way down, even his mouth.
Yeah.
And settling your stomach and just shredding it to bits.
Yeah.
It's horrific. He was in just unbelievable pain.
Yeah.
So earlier, when he cried out, "Florence, hot water," I guarantee you the tone of his voice would have indicated this is an emergency to anybody in that house. For sure. He was in horrific pain. Charles had the habit, remember, of taking that flask or that bottle of water with him to bed every night and gulp some down. A tartar emetic easily dissolves in water and is basically tasteless. It's on the way down that you start at that amount. Remember, people took it all the time.
Yeah.
But in a tiny, tiny dose. 30 grains going down did what they did to him and just destroyed the inside of him.
Yeah.
So if Charles had done this, gulped the water, and realized what was happening, that's why I argue he had immediately known something horrible just happened to me. I've been poisoned.
Right.
Whether he thought it was an accident or purpose doesn't matter. He would have known immediately that something horrific just happened. And he starts throwing up.
Is this something that they had in the house?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll see why. So this makes his reluctance to say anything that happened to him and to not even admit that absurd and all the more baffling. So we know he was lying about the laudanum the entire time. Obviously, since they didn't find any laudanum in his system, they found a ton of antimony.
Yeah.
He had to have known how that antimony got into his body. It was almost certainly the water bottle, and he had to have known that someone had put that in there and poisoned him.
Right.
And for 3 days, he will not give that person up, or even who he suspects would have done it. And we all know who he would have suspected to have done it.
And maybe he has a conscience, and he knew how badly he had treated Florence.
I actually have an argument for that.
And he was making up for it.
Maybe.
He thought, yeah, I deserve this.
This is karma. Karma's a bitch, but you know what? I deserve a bitch.
Mm-hmm.
So with the finding of death by antimony, an inquest was now a certainty. They were not able to fight off an inquest anymore. At this point, the family was able to fight it off. So Florence's family connections, though, could still help with that inquest. So on April 25th, 1876, the inquest was held. Where, you might ask? Florence's house, the Priory.
That's nice.
What does she do with the jury members while they're hearing testimony?
She gives them nice snacks and
You're joking.
wine.
She for sure did. She served refreshments during the course of the inquest into her possible murder of her husband.
I would too. She's a civilized lady.
She is. She's a good hostess. But that's a fairly ridiculous way to have an inquest.
Yeah. Well, it's ridiculous that it's at her house.
It is. The coroner was a friend of Florence's father. And so he made no announcement to the press. He scheduled the inquest. He got a jury. He impaneled it and told no one.
Yeah.
He kept it completely on the down low, purposely and knowingly.
Yeah.
He did not even call Florence as a witness.
Oh.
Would have been one of the 2 or 3 main witnesses for sure. 2 doctors who had attended to Charles of the 6 who had attended to Charles during his horrible end told how he had claimed to have used laudanum for toothache and that maybe he took too much. They said, quote, he said, "I have taken some of that poison, but don't tell Florence." Again, this is what Mrs. Cox had told them. So I assume with that testimony, they're relaying what Mrs. Cox had told them.
Yeah.
He denied deliberately poisoned himself, though, to the doctors. And again, would not lay the blame on others. So he apparently, according to the doctors, it seems as if he was trying to imply it was an accident completely. Again, though, he was saying it in the sense of it being a laudanum to treat a toothache. And they know that was not true. And we now, again, from the postmortem, we know it could never have been true.
And he couldn't have said that to Mrs. Cox after taking it.
Well, he
because he wouldn't have been able to calmly do that.
What? He for sure said it after taking it.
According to Mrs. Cox.
Yes. No, but
if he had taken, he could have said that about the laudanum. He couldn't have said that about the antimony because after having taken that much, he couldn't have calmly come in and said,
No, he didn't calmly come in. He would have, she said he told, like, at his bedside.
Oh.
So during his 3-day sickness, at some point when Florence was not in the room, Mrs. Cox said he had told her, "I took some poison."
Oh, I completely misunderstood.
Yeah.
I thought he came and told her as she was sitting there knitting.
No.
And Florence was passed out.
No, way off, Carrie, way off. So it's plausible. It's not impossible, but again, the doctors knew it was not true. So there's even though the laudanum story is not true and we know it was antimony, they have no evidence during this inquest to suggest who might have done it if there was any intent at all.
Well, 100% Mrs. Cox.
Why?
Because
what evidence do they have that she put antimony in his water?
They don't, but I would assume what she said is a lie.
Yeah, it was. Well, A, you can't assume that, and it's just the two of them, and B, so she could have been trying to just
Because why would he tell her but not his doctor?
I don't know.
Exactly.
I think you're making too much of it. It doesn't indicate a guilt for her at all, though. If she did lie, if it was a lie, and it probably was, it could have been. Well, actually, we'll talk about that. To
take the suspicion off of herself or Florence.
Or Florence, for sure. We'll get to that in a bit.
Okay.
The coroner, remember, friend of the family, concluded right away that, hey, guess what? He said the doctors who first came there assumed it was suicide. Must have been suicide. Let's just say it was suicide. He wrote, quote, the deceased died from the effects of poison, antimony, but we have not sufficient evidence under what circumstances it came into his body, unquote. He urged the jury to give an open verdict suggesting suicide, maybe an accident, but to give no indication of how Charles came to be poisoned or by whom. The jury did exactly that. They gave an open verdict and essentially made no any kind of implication of anything.
Yeah.
They just said, we don't know. We're done. Inquest over.
Yeah.
Okay. The Bravo family, not happy. Not pleased at all by that. They again believe Charles was murdered. They're pretty sure it was Florence. So I think it's at this point that they hired the detective, the private detective, is actually a Scotland Yard active detective acting in a private capacity for them, which was not uncommon at the time.
Yeah.
It's for sure. Police do a lot more moonlighting than we realize. Usually as security. But yeah, this was a situation where even a detective could be paid off by a powerful family to look into a case privately, and he did. Calls for a more thorough second inquest came about almost immediately, though, especially when, I guess, the media, the press at the time, the newspapers, they discovered that a former horse groomsman who worked at the Prairie, his name was George Griffith, he had been fired by Charles back when he was still alive.
Yeah.
And so really angry, he had gone to a bar that same day, and he angrily foretold that Charles would not live for more than a few months.
Oh.
It's like, that's obviously coincidental because Charles did not live for more than a few months.
Yeah.
Antimony also was in the household. It was used to battle worm infestations in the horses. Charles was a groom, so he had ready access to antimony. I think they also had some as a tartar emetic in the house.
Yeah.
But George Griffith, this groom who had basically, said Charles was George Griffith, I'm sorry, who said Charles was going to die.
Yeah.
We know he had ready access to antimony. So this gets everybody thinking. How did he
get it in the carafe, the bedside carafe?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we'll get to that. And do you want me to spoil it?
No.
Okay, good. Meanwhile, as if to prove her own innocence, as suspicion spread toward Florence, which is natural in the circumstances, she put up a 500-pound reward for information about anything that anybody knew about what happened to her husband. It's about $90,000 in today's money. So a very significant reward. But, I mean, if she had done it, she knows no one else is going to know. So it'd be her.
I don't think she did it.
We'll see. On June 2nd, she and Jane Cox were deposed by their solicitors. I think they did this to try to, again, my opinion, I think they did this to set up a story, or at least, but they wanted to have a deposition to have their testimony on record. So they went but they also had a lawyer, a solicitor working for the Bravo family was there to cross-examine them. So they said everything about how nasty Charles was and said he was terrible and he was verbally abusive, even physically abusive. If you recall, he did slap her a few times and that he was a nasty guy, right? But the affair with Dr. Gawley came up and was also covered in this testimony. I am going to presume that it was at the questioning of the solicitor for the Bravo family.
Yeah.
This was the first time that affair was publicly exposed to everybody. Again, kind of the upper crust, a lot of those folks knew about it, but now it became complete public knowledge that she had this affair with this really old married doctor.
Right. Before her marriage.
Yes. But during that guy's marriage.
Yeah.
No, wait.
Yeah.
No, don't, but during her marriage to Alexander Ricardo.
Yeah.
As you call.
Yeah.
So although they would say that they didn't actually consummate that relationship until after Alexander died, that's a little bit questionable.
Yeah.
So the affair with Dr. Gawley was talked about. Jane Cox also testified at these depositions, and she changed her story a little bit. Now, remember she said that Charles had called her over to the bedside and said, I took poison, don't tell Florence. Now she changed it just a hair. She said that, quote, I have taken poison for Gawley, don't tell Florence. Most people took this to indicate that he was saying, I did it out of jealousy towards Gawley. It's because of Gawley, because I hated Gawley so much and I hated the relationship he had with my wife. So that's why I took the poison and killed myself.
Okay.
She sort of added to it. She sort of elaborated on that. How she forgot to say the words for Gawley the first time when she told the doctors is unclear. So here's my thoughts. Was this intentional? Was Florence admitting the affair? Because they didn't have to do this testimony, this depositions, right? They didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
This wasn't an inquest. Florence admitted the affair, right? Jane Cox also talks about the affair, and she now changes what she said to indicate that Charles had killed himself over Gawley.
Yeah.
It almost seems like a strategy to me that they're kind of giving a better story of why he would have killed himself. That's my supposition, though.
Okay.
Finally, though, the pressure gets too great, and a second inquest is called. It starts on July 11th, and this one was held at the far more neutral Bedford Hotel in Balham, not at, the potentially accused house.
Yeah.
Florence and Jane again testified about how mean Charles was, how he's abusive, etc. Also that he was fiercely jealous of Gawley, and he had threatened to leave Florence on multiple times, thinking she was still carrying on in some fashion with Gawley.
Yeah.
At least that's what they testified. This testimony, as you can see, kind of reinforces those earlier depositions. And it, to me, at least, it kind of, again, possibly implies a coordinated effort to establish this motive for suicide.
Yeah.
Dr. George Johnson.
It's a dumb motive for suicide.
It is, but they, I feel like they're providing a motive for it, however believable it is or not.
Yeah.
Now, Dr. George Johnson, he is one of Charles's attending physicians, as you recall. He had not been allowed to testify at the first deposition, first inquest, rather. He is able at this one, and also he tells reporters after he testifies that he believed Charles had not committed suicide, essentially implying that he'd been murdered.
Yeah.
Back at the inquest, they had some character witnesses for Charles, including the servants, by the way, and other friends of his, and they refuted Cox and Florence's testimony. They said Charles was a swell guy.
What?
Yeah. They said he was absolutely not suicidal. He was in love with her. The servants testified that they had never witnessed the kind of abuse that the two women had described.
Is that true?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think they just probably kept it, although servants typically know everything that's going on. I don't know. Who knows? But it's weird if there was nothing. And we know for a fact he was a dick. He was greedy. Remember he told that solicitor, screw you, but with your congratulations, I'm here for the check. So I think the servants are being nice or even were paid off.
But I was going to say.
By the family.
Yeah. Paid off by his family.
I have no idea.
Why wouldn't they be loyal to their actual employer, the one who is still alive?
Or maybe they genuinely, maybe he was.
If you do this, I'd fire you.
Maybe he was good at doing those things without servants around. It's possible.
And
who knows?
Mrs. Cox was more privy to the
much more. She told
stuff.
Mrs. Cox everything. She didn't tell any of the servants that. So it's possible they're telling the truth, and he still was abusive.
Yeah.
You're not buying it?
Nope.
Okay. Remember Griffith? He was the fired groom.
Yeah.
Who predicted death. He was brought in too for the second inquest. He admitted that he had said the whole going to be dead in a few months thing, but he said it's because he had heard Charles had been bitten by a dog.
Sure.
It's like, and? What? So?
Yeah.
You thought he had rabies or something and he was going to die in a few months? I have no idea.
Yeah.
It's not clear at all why he said what he said. Something said something about always looking for the reward. How is that going to get him the reward, the 500 pounds? So I don't know. I really don't. And it didn't matter though, because George Griffiths, his employer alibied him and said he was with me at the day of the incident. It was like 65 miles away. So he could not have physically done it.
Okay.
Mrs. Cox seemed to relish talking about Florence's affair, by the way. She's a little different here in the second inquest.
Yeah.
She mentioned how Florence had become pregnant by Gawley and had the abortion. It seems like there's a little bit of a break here.
Completely not relevant.
It does. I mean, she's probably answering these questions under the solicitors for the Bravos, but I don't know.
Yeah.
And here's one theory is that there was some suspicion toward her, remember, as well. She could have done it as well. So maybe she's like, okay, push come to shove, I'm going to throw Florence under the bus if it comes to me.
Right.
I love her, but I ain't going down I'm not hanging. So she was forced to admit to having met Dr. Gawley several times during Florence's marriage leading up to Charles's death, which is, so was there still a relationship and she was a go-between? I don't know. But it does seem like, what are you meeting him for? What is he doing exactly? He doesn't come out well in this one either.
Yeah.
Cox claimed that, I just met him accidentally at the train station. That's all. And so they then brought witnesses who could verify that they were seen together 5 times, not just once at the train station. So something was going on there. I'm not sure what exactly. Jane Cox, said she had asked Dr. Gawley for some medication because Florence was not sleeping well. So she goes, those other 4 times? I was just trying to get some sleeping medication for Florence. So they said, okay, where's the medication? Show us the medication. She said, I threw it away because Florence said she didn't need it anymore. So there's some weirdness going on with her story here for sure.
Yeah.
Weirdest yet, though, one of the 2 doctors that Cox said she had told. Remember that she said she had told that. Charles said to me he'd take the poison himself. One of those doctors said she never told me that. She may have been lying about that. I think at least one of the doctor must have verified it. Otherwise, everything I know says that one of the doctors said he had not told her that. So it's possible she had exaggerated how many doctors she had told that, and she only told one.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Asked how she now felt about Florence, Sarah Cox said, quote, I think she might have spared me many of these painful inquiries to which I have been subjected, end quote. So she may have also just been pissed off. And think about that quote. Think about that saying. It's kind of a slick way to imply that Florence could have poisoned Charles and so push suspicion toward Florence and away from Mrs. Cox herself.
Yeah.
But it's also plausibly deniable that, no, that's not what I meant. Are you mad at me? I didn't mean that at all. Of course not. I didn't mean that. I just meant that, you could have helped me. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a clever thing to say, and it's kind of sleazy. It's kind of throwing her under the bus a little bit.
Yeah.
The jury heard about Charles's, nightly water bottle habit, all that kind of thing, and how this would have been the perfect way to poison him. Again, I think it's just kind of in this case, people just assume that's how he was poisoned, and it's almost certainly true. One of the doctors, though, said he had drunk out of that water bottle and suffered no ill effects. Now, this is dumb in 2 ways. One, are you an idiot? You have a poison patient and you're going to drink out of his water bottle, you shithead? 2, so what? Obviously, the water bottle would have been, any murderer would have dumped that water and put in new water. So whatever. So doctors can be stupid too, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Florence and Dr. Gawley were both called in to testify as well, by the way. And they were relentlessly interrogated about their affair, again, from the Bravo solicitor. I don't know if that's, I guess to prove maybe that they had motive, like maybe they hope you guys are going to kill the husband to get back together, that you'd be free of him, maybe, I suppose, or maybe just to make, character assassination.
Yeah.
Charles' stepfather hired the solicitor to cross-examine the happy couple, and that guy badgered Florence to the point where she begged for protection. Quote, I refuse to answer any more questions about Dr. Gawley. This inquiry is about the death of my husband, and I appeal to the jury as men and as Britons to protect me, end quote. I know that's a Southern Belle accent, and she's English, but I can't help myself. So she, make him leave me alone. He's badgering me. Your Honor, I do believe I have the vapors, is I assume how that went down. In my mind, it is anyway. Dr. Gawley was actually, he was like, stop, this is getting old, kind of a thing. So he kind of shrugged it off, but his reputation was being torn asunder. Yeah. So the inquest lasted 32 days. On August 11th, with no real evidence of foul play brought to bear, the jury returned another inconclusive decision, but this one had a real clear direction. Quote, we find that Mr. Charles Delaney Turner Bravo did not commit suicide, that he did not meet his death by misadventure, that he was willfully murdered by the administration of tartar emetic, but there is not sufficient evidence to fix the guilt upon any person or persons, unquote. So we know he was murdered. We know how he was murdered. We can't say who did it. We're done. But hint, hint, someone needs to look into this a little further.
I have a theory that's inconsistent with that.
You do? Mm-hmm. Tell me.
Do you want to know now? Are we going to have a third part?
Yes.
Okay.
So that is part 2 of the mystery murder of Charles Bravo. Next will be part 3, in which we go through the possible suspects and I have a theory. I will present. Carrie has a theory as well.
I have a theory, and I better write it down.
You should write it down right now. Yes. So we'll go through that. We'll go through all the suspects and what is the most plausible scenario. Well, at least what we think is the most plausible scenario. And then we'll wrap it up with what happened to the main players here and end it with that. So thank you for listening. Until next time.